I think you see just in talking to her, that I told you guys early on, probably in the fall, that the goal with her, was not so much about gymnastics, but to get her to a place where she felt good again and that she was healthy physically and felt good about what she was doing and where she was doing it, and kind of just rediscover the joy of the sport. And I think she just shared with you that she's rediscovering that, and that was priority number one. Everything else for her outside of LSU goals, will be put on a plan that she can tolerate and be driven by her. It'll be driven by what her desires and aspirations are. They're not going to be driven by us. And so you know, just really really pleased with the progress. I think it's probably beyond where I even initially thought it would be when she first came in, and so she's doing great. And as far as this weekend goes, some really great things happened, obviously, but there, also some disappointments, and so we've got to iron out those things. It's not atypical. There's been very few teams around the country that haven't had similar issues so far early in the season, so it's certainly not something we need to knee jerk, but we do need to get some consistency, and I think she nailed it when she told you that for some reason the confidence on balance beam just has been lacking a little bit, and so we've got to be able to address that without creating a mountain out of a molehill, because it's a fine line to walk. You address the problems, but you don't make it worse by knee jerking and moving things around too much, because we believe in the system that we have and in the process that we're going through. And it looks a little different this year, as a result of some of the lessons we learned last year. We maybe have taken a little slower approach, trying to make sure that we don't that we do everything in our power to not wind up in a similar situation that we were in. We've had some years where we've been able to start super fast and then see it collapse at the end. So you want to balance that to the best of your ability, and there's really not a written recipe for doing that. You've got to kind of dictate. It gets dictated by the personnel that you have on your team. So I was really pleased overall with the weekend. I thought floor looked fantastic again. Obviously bars was amazing, but it was they got mad, and that's the kind of performance we see day in and day out. And so while we are known for that, fighting our way out of things, it's not something that we necessarily need to be known for. I'm glad we can do it when we have to, but we need to stop having to. And we've got to stop digging holes for ourselves and then having to climb out of them and everybody cheering that on. Let's start putting some complete efforts together, and let's be in the correct mindset when we get started.
If you wouldn't mind being a little bit technical and describe what makes Connor's bars routine so good. It seems like going from the high bar to the low bar, that transition looks really difficult. And what did you see in her as a junior? Obviously, she's coming up, and she eventually becomes this gymnast who wins the national all around title.
Yeah.
What did you see in her early on in recruiting?
I don't know I've been aware of Connor for a long time. Like I think she was in sixth or seventh grade, maybe seventh grade, the first time I ever set foot in her gym and watched her, when she was still in West Virginia. And you just tell she's just a different level of talent. There's just things that jump off the page. I don't know how to describe it any other way. There's talented, and then there's things that just draw your attention, and she has that physical ability that just jumps off the page at you when you watch her train. The release itself, on the first release on bars, is a very difficult release. It's not done often. I think there may be a couple other people in college that have done it. It's called a church, and it's the same skill as some of our other people do, but she does it with her legs together in a piked position rather than straddled. The straddle generally allows it to turn over and rotate easier. Doing it piked is very difficult, and it requires a great deal of what we call amplitude getting up off the bar. So if you watch that release from the side, she's up there. She's probably 12 feet or so in the air at the apex of that thing. So it's just a very difficult skill, and it's fun to watch because it's just a monster. I mean, it's just huge, and her half pirouettes on top of the bar on the low bar, and that dismount, which is new in the sense that I think she did it when she was much younger, at like age, I don't know, 11 or 12, but hasn't done it in quite some time. And so we brought it out of mothballs in the fall and started training it again, and eventually moved it back out to a hard surface. And she said it in her interview after the meet that she doesn't land it as consistently as she would like, and we've kind of taken the emphasis off of that and just focused on the direction. And I told her, if you'll just focus on that, the landing will start to come. We can't be result oriented in anything we do. We talk about that as a team. We talk about that with a skill. We have to think about the things that dictate the result and the process that we go through to get there. And so to see it come together was cool. It was a cool moment for her, and a cool moment for all of us, for the team, and it was fun. It was fun, but you know, it's short lived because that's an individual thing, and that's not something that we put we put very little, if any, emphasis on those kinds of things.
Just wanted your thoughts on being at home Friday, and how many people do you feel like are watching these meets on television on Friday night now? You know, kind of like football.
Yeah, I mean, I think the exposure, I don't know numbers. I know ESPN has their internal numbers. We can't always get access to that, but I will tell you that everybody I've talked to at ESPN, whether they're producers or people that are behind the scenes, say that that as a whole they're bullish on our sport right now, and so they must be getting, you know, they must be seeing things in their analytics that are great. I think it's been they've been a tremendous partner for our sport. Once we got on live TV with them, and we've worked with them, and we've had to give up a few things in order to make it work. But they've also been respectful of our sport and helped elevate it to new heights. So I think the audience continues to grow, and that's why we want to keep it as simple as possible. That's why we haven't changed our scoring system or gone to things that overcomplicate an already complicated sport for people to understand. But you know, that people know what a perfect 10 is, they know what a home run is, they know what a touchdown is. So if we can keep it in terms where the layperson can have a very general, at least a general understanding of what we do. The parity is at an all-time high. You know, I can remember days when there was 3 teams and then everybody else, and now it's, if you're in the top 15 to 20, things can go either way on any given day, and that's great for our sport. Sometimes I worry if we create a manufactured level of parity, just by our rules being like they are, and I think we have to continue to examine that year over year. But I think the health of the sport is at an all-time high right now, and it's fun to be a part of that. And you know, our fan base and fan bases in other places are playing a big role in that, because when you put something on television and the stands are full, you're much more likely to watch it than if you put something on the television and it looks like nobody's in the arena. And I think having our home meets here in the PMAC and the kind of fervor that our fans show is tremendous for our sport.
Yeah, what about Kentucky? It seems early? Is SEC's early this year?
You're talking about the beginning of our SEC schedule? No, that's about right. I think we usually get 1 or 2 in, and then we go into the SEC schedule. And look, Kentucky's come in here, and they've had our number the last several years, right? And they're probably better now than they've been in the last 10 years even. That's a really strong Kentucky team that's coming in here. They're super clean. They execute very well. Raina Worley is one of the best kids in the country by a long shot. And so we got our hands full, and it's going to be an exciting environment in here on Friday night. So I encourage our fans to get here and fill up seats. A little later start. It's an 8 p.m. start, so hopefully that doesn't discourage people from getting their kids out here, but we want it loud and crazy, and students will be back, and I want students in their stands and going nuts, and let's maximize our environment if we can.
Everybody healthy?
Yeah, we came out, I mean, everybody that was going in, we came out okay, so never, I don't like talking about that too much with you, Cobble. It messes me up, but yeah, I think we're in a pretty good spot physically.
And then just to see Livy out on the floor, what did you think of her?
Liv, you know, Liv is good, and when Liv's dialed in, she's good. I thought her floor routine probably, you know, could have gone a little higher. She's doing a great job. she's relevant in other places too. The difference is that all this ballyhoo depth that everybody wants to talk about, it becomes a challenge to break into a lineup that only puts 6 out on the floor at any given time. So she's doing a great job on bars. She's training beam at a high level, and so her being ready on floor at the beginning of the season is great, because the last 2 years we had to really push to get her ready by the end of the season on that event. So she did a great job in the off season. I keep telling people that she did a great job of showing up prepared, and she's been a tremendous part of our success on floor so far, and just she's a good teammate too, and that's important.
She's healthier than she's been, certainly to start the season. Right?
Yeah, I mean, some injuries don't go away, right? And so, when you have a torn labrum in your shoulder, that sounds like a horrible thing, but many times, we've got a lot of people on the team that have those. Lots of gymnasts have those, and it depends on the size of the tear, depends on where it is, and whether or not you get it fixed. A lot of times, the trend now is to not fix them, because they usually tear again anyway. So you manage it, and you get strong, and you build up around it, and you do the things that you need to do. And she's done a great job of that.
This is meant to be a somewhat lighthearted question, but the last time Kentucky was here, it was one of the more infamous gymnastics meets I've ever seen. Everything's. Do you double check these things now?
Look, man,
honestly, yeah.
No, the equipment is sound. We have good equipment here at LSU. I can assure you of that. It's not faulty equipment. It will not fail. Tim Garrison, the head coach at Kentucky, and I, we disagree on whether that was equipment failure that night, but we're good friends, and have tremendous respect for him and what he's done with that program. He had a steep hill to climb when he took that job, and he's done a great job of continuing to get them in a good place.
You about where you want to be for week 3?
Yeah, I feel good about where we are. I really do. I mean, I think minus the hiccups on beam, which we'll get that ironed out. Some of that's early season stuff, and some of it we need to get a handle on, because it was 4 different people in 2 weeks, right? So if it was one person, you'd probably just say they're kind of going through it a little bit. But when it's 4 different people, we clearly need to address it, but we need to address it in a manner that is not destructive to. It's such a mental event, and it's a different beast than the other events. You don't want to tinker with their heads too much on that, because you think it's bad now, it can get worse if you're not careful. So you just have to stay the course in many, many ways, but try to challenge them in new ways that kind of break them through that.
Are Kathy and Bart like the best to kind of do what you were saying earlier, as far as bring people along into the sport?
Well, I think, Bart and Kathy have a great synergy but they've been doing it together so long. They play off each other really well. They're huge icons in our sport. I appreciate both of their friendship. I've known them a long time, and they're really professional in the way they go. I think what we have to be careful of, though, is if we get, with the increased popularity of the sport, we're bringing in new talent that not necessarily is as polished sometimes, and so. I don't know. I always tell Bart and Kathy, I don't agree with everything you say, but I appreciate the way you do it and the product that you put out there for us. And it's a very polished product, and it's very professional. And so I'm hopeful that, as we expand, that we don't go so fast that we end up with what comes off as a, you don't want to put people in positions they're not ready for. And so we need to make sure that. I thought the addition of Taylor as a sideline reporter for the ABC meet was tremendous. She does a great job. She's done that in other sports. So those kinds of things matter. And so I think Bart and Kathy they're sort of the gold standard and the benchmark. I think John Roethlisberger, who's also a friend of mine, and Alicia Sacramone have done a great job. It's a very different style that they do it with. There's a lot more banter and a little more wit to the way that they do things. So I think there's room for additional talent to come in and do it. I just want to be careful that we don't expand it so fast that we end up with what feels like a B movie, you know.
This has been unusual. Obviously, this year Aaliyah was able to do what she did to qualify for the Olympics. But Connor's in a little different spot. She's going through the season. Meanwhile, she's trying, as she said, trying to hone some of those skills, which are a little different for international competition. How have you tried to support her in both things? Because obviously, it's great for her and for the program. If she could make what is maybe the hardest team in the world to make
Yeah.
in any sport.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a steep hill to climb on that, and as I said earlier, she's got to drive the boat on that. It's not something that we're going to dictate for her. We're going to support, and we're going to bring her along and help and consult and help her plan. But you know, I got to make sure that I don't get out of my lane. My responsibility is to LSU and this team, and I'm not. My emphasis is on making sure that this team's needs are met, and that so that's why I say it's in her lap a little bit, because we'll help and we'll bring her along and probably consult with some coaches who understand better how to pace that than we do. It's not something that we've done a lot, but I think for now, right now, what her college routines are doing are giving her kind of a basic skeleton, a baseline. It's not that the skills are harder that she does at the Olympic level. It's that she has to do a lot more of them in the routine. So it's going to be about how to bring her along, how to add those things in a manner that's not destructive to what she's trying to do for her team, but that prepares her to get ready for what her obligations will be. And honestly, I don't even know what all those are. I mean, these are things that she has to ferret out and communicate with us about what she's going to need. Thanks, guys.